over the years, when you read about your father,
Right.
so many different stories written about him, right? Persona, personality, King of New York, all this stuff, all these great nicknames that he has. But at some point, something happens where the level of rage can go to a whole different level for different people. For me, one day my dad and I are sitting down and we're having a conversation. He's watching all these mob interviews. He says, what do you think about these guys? They did this and they did that and they killed and they did this. And I say, yeah, that's the life they were raised in. He says, well, I could never kill anybody. I could never do this. I could never do that. I'm like, look, at the time he had only one grandkid and daughter, Grace. I said, what would you do? What are you capable of if somebody does something to your granddaughter? You just see my dad suddenly gets the rage going, right? And he says, I'd be capable of doing anything to protect my granddaughter. I said, totally right. The story with Joseph Kennedy for me is one of the guys I really like to study on because he's the guy that could have been a gangster. Some say he was a gangster. For him to be able to build a family.
Talk about the father or son?
The father, okay. Joseph Kennedy, the OG.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the father, he was a bootlegger.
That's right. He was, later on he became the, chairman of SEC, and I think it was all these different things that he did.
Yeah.
But something happened to him when his oldest son died, right? When that took place. It changed him.
Absolutely.
The story about I think it's your younger brother.
My brother,
right?
Frankie boy, yeah.
Frankie. What happened to Frankie and what influence did that have on your father?
Well, look, we've, at that point in our lives, I'm sure my father experienced a lot of losses in his life, meeting friends and whatnot, but we've never experienced something so close to home. So he was away a good portion of Frankie boy's life. Nevertheless, he was like the apple of his eye. He really was. Frankie was a good kid. He's a chubby kid with curly hair, cherub face, his little cherub face. What bothered him the most, well, naturally he lost his son, but that particular day, Frankie was a tough kid. He was always fighting in school, always getting in trouble. So finally my father had enough. He used to call my mother Butch. It was a nickname for my mother. He said, Butch, go get this kid and bring him home right now. She went and got my brother Frankie, and I was away at military school at the time. She brings him in the house, and she tells my father, my mother would take a beating for us if she had to. She was fiercely loyal to her kids. She says, Johnny, I'm telling you right now, don't put your hands on him. Keep your mouth shut. Go get him. He walks in the house, and as soon as he comes in the house, and he had it with Frankie, and he gives him an ass whipping.
Are you there? You're seeing this?
No, I'm in military school. I'm away.
Got it.
I heard afterwards, and that's just when my father ate him up. It completely ate him up because he never put his hands on Frankie, but he had enough. That's it. He says, this kid needs... My father was raised in a house where his father used to beat him just to let him know he was there, okay? So, but yet he showed a lot of restraint and hit his own kids. If my father gave me 5 beatings in my life, I probably deserved 15, okay? He showed a lot of restraint in his own children, okay? Never hit my sisters, never would raise his hands. And Frankie boy, he was the younger than I was. He wasn't the fifth. My brother Peter's the fifth, but Frankie boy was sort of like treated like almost like the baby there. And he gave him this beating, and that was it. He told him, "That's it. Go up to your room. You're punished. That's it." Blah blah blah. And he told my mother, "He's not to leave this house. You understand me? He don't leave this goddamn house. That's it." And my father leaves. Well, Frankie sneaks out of the house and meets up with some friends. Goes on a mini bike. And gets hit by a car and gets killed.
I didn't know that story, John.
Yeah, that's what happened. So he came off the Belt Parkway, and the sun was low, and the car nailed him, hit him, dragged him about several hundred feet. He was stuck under the car, actually. And, it was, my mother got the call, and she raced barefoot 3 blocks down to where this happened, and she saw him in the street.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
When did you hear about it? When did they call you?
My father sent the car up to come get me at military school. And they came to my room. They told me that put your service uniform on and someone's coming to pick you up. Someone's coming to pick me up, put my service uniform on. This didn't make any sense. So we don't know anything else. So I had to go to my quarters, put my service uniform on, my white gloves, my hat, and I went and I waited. I sat there and waited. Car pulls up, And driving the car was a gentleman who did time with my father in Lewisburg. His name was Charlie DeCanio. And another gentleman named Mark. He recently died in prison. They picked me up, got in the car. They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't talk. They were very somber. And like Mark was sort of like holding back from crying. So I'm saying something ain't right here. I'm not asking any questions. I'm figuring maybe something happened to my father. I don't know. And then we get home. I pull in front of the house. They tell me, wait here. I see everybody by my house. A lot of people there. They both get out of the car, and I'm in the car by myself now, in the back seat. Wait here. I can't get out and go in my own house. And I'm sitting there, I'm fidgeting in the car. And I'm saying, all of a sudden I see my father walk out. I went, he's okay. What could this be all about? Never hit me. And he takes me out of the car, takes me for a walk. He says, your brother's gone.
He told you this?
Yeah, did.
Man, I am so sorry. I did not know this whole story. Yeah. Wow. And at this point, while this is taking place, it's, holy moly.
Yeah. It was, you sort of think to yourself, you say, maybe if I didn't go away to school and I was here, it wouldn't have happened. So for several years, I beat myself up over that. But I know my father most certainly beat himself up over it. And he would never show that emotion. My father was a true soldier. He sat for 3 days. We had Frankie's wake for 3 days. 3 days, he postured by that coffin, and he greeted people from all over. They came from Buffalo, from Pennsylvania. They came from all over. And he greeted everybody, and he'd walk them over and show them his son, brush his hair back, and he kept it all together. I couldn't keep it together.
Oh, my God, no way.
I couldn't keep it together. But when he had his own quiet time, when he had his own time, that's when he would mourn. You'd hear him at night. He'd mourn.
You ever saw him in front of you, like when he never showed it in front of you?
Never one time. He wouldn't show me that weakness. He wouldn't show anybody that weakness. He wouldn't do it. Just wouldn't do it. He would do it. My bedroom was attached to his den. So the vent was right there. It was a thin wall that detached. So where my bed was, there was a vent to the right side of my bed, and that's where the couches were, and there was a fireplace in his den. And I would hear him. I'd hear my father. He would mourn on his own terms to himself.
How did that change him? Like, how did you see that change him?
He was a strong guy. It changed my mother forever. She's still not well today. She's still not right today. She often drifts back to Frankie Boy all the time. She's still in the same house. She won't change his room. She's never going to move on. I ask her to, Ma, move out to the island with us, get rid of the house, stay with us. No. She says, my son's in this house. I still hear my husband come up the stairs at night.
Wow.
I'm staying here. This is my house.
Frankie's room is still the same. So my mother, it had this profound effect on her that she never recovered from. She still, Frankie's dead 44 years, and she never recovered from it. But my father, he was a soldier. When we had the opportunity, when he was in Marion, Illinois, which was the only level 6 prison in the country, when he was in deadlock, we weren't allowed to touch. So we had a plexiglass between us. And you had to pick up a phone to talk. Mm-hmm. That's your visit. Mm-hmm. So for 7.5 years, that's how I visited my father. And he'd come down, and he'd be shackled up and unchained and put in this locked area, and then he'd pick up the phone and we would talk. That's how. And at times, he would drift back and talk about Frankie Boy, and you'd see. That's when his eyes would change, his facial expressions would change. But he was a soldier. He was a tough guy. He kept it right here. He knew exactly how to control his emotions. And he had the same expectation from me. And back then I couldn't do it. And still now, talking about it, I get emotional. My brother and I, we shared the same bed. So I still can't. I'm not him. But he had that ability. Is it when that took place, and I'm wondering, like, is that what did anything about his temperament, rage, anything change? And I've read a lot of different things about the story of the individual. Was it intentional? Was it accidental? Did you ever get to the bottom of what this accident?
I don't know all the particulars. There were stories that the guy was drunk. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm limited in my knowledge and what I would want to look at. I did know this. They lived around the corner. I was friends with his son. I liked the family, I did. So 2 families got torn apart. He ended up missing sometime later, and I don't know all those particulars, but if we would say that Frankie's death would sort of make my father into a different character, or as you say, there's a rage aspect there, no.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape, and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time, and they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm gonna put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.